Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. I have to say that when I first got the invitation from Pat, who I've known for a really long time, to come, and I was thinking about what I was going to be talking about, that all changed 2 weeks ago. So, and the topic, the Janus face, I originally had a more hopeful conversation in mind in kind of picking that, thinking about the ways in which drug policy was moving in a progressive way and some of the challenges that we still face in terms of the backward face. But I have to tell you, standing here today, and I promised myself that I was going to get through this without crying, but I have to say there are a number of things that I have to start off with. First off, it's like this conference for me has been the most surreal experience. I've been to 3 conferences since the election. One just before. I was at the Harm Reduction Conference in San Diego the weekend before the US election. And then right after, I went to a conference called Facing Race, and then another one a week after called State of the Black World. And in each of those venues, and it's kind of weird because at the Harm Reduction Conference, the DPA people were meeting just before that, and we were having a policy discussion. And they asked us at the end of the discussion to write what they called pop headlines, where you kind of write a headline of what you're projecting is going to be happening the week after the election. And the idea was to either be funny or sarcastic or whatever. And so my pop headline was Trump wins in surprise upset, demand for heroin surges. Now, at the time, I thought I was being funny and ironic when I wrote that. And I'm sitting here 2 weeks later, and now it occurs to me as prescient and tragic. And so when I say to you that I feel that this has been a surreal experience, it's because I just don't get any sense of urgency in this room about what it is that we're facing and what's happening in the world right now and how that affects the stuff that we've been working on and doing. So I can't speak about what it means for you, but I can speak about what it means for me. I've spent the last 20 years of my life working on ending the drug war, which, as you know, has been fought in the US with particular virulence. But I have to tell you that part of that experience has had me go to other parts of the world. And one of the things I really got clear about is that the war on drugs is effectively a very convenient and efficient umbrella for genocide that's occurring right now. Before these elections, I was in Brazil this summer, a country where Black people are experiencing genocide at the hands of the state under the umbrella of the drug war. And it's an interesting phenomenon because when they first started using that term, I questioned it myself, whether or not it was appropriate. And then I went back and looked at what are the international definitions of genocide. And it's the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group by killing the members, by causing serious bodily injury or mental harm to the members, by deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births, forcibly transferring children from one group to another. If you look at what's happening to Black communities throughout the Americas, from Canada to Chile, you can't help but see that they're being subjected to genocidal policies. And for those people who have a problem with that term, I'll use the word eliminationist, because the goal is to eliminate people. And so when we talk about the Philippines and what's happening there, which I thank Matt for even raising, that represents the logical extension of the philosophy that we've been dealing with now for over 100 years of prohibition. And for those of us who look at the Philippines and say, oh my God, that's so horrible, what they're doing, but it could only happen there under that madman. I say no. It's currently happening all over the world to marginalized people. And I really want us to challenge the way that we talk about drug users here, because we talk about drug users and the persecution of drug users as if it happens equally to all drug users the same way in all countries. But I'm here in the UK, which is supposed to be an extremely diverse country, and yet I'm looking in this room and I don't see a whole lot of diversity here. And I know that among the drug users in this country, there are a whole lot of them who look like me. And there's a whole lot of them a lot browner than the folks in this room. So I'm like, where are they? And why is that not part of this discussion? And why are we not talking about the ways in which immigration policy has been melded into drug policy so that it can be used as a tool for political and economic control? Why are we not talking about the fact that we are standing right now in conditions that are reminiscent of the 1930s in every way? We are watching fascism on the rise internationally. What the hell does that mean? And we're sitting here talking about our services as if we're going to be able to continue delivering them the way that we did before. I'm like, really, people? I am standing here as a person who feels very much under threat. I have never lived in my lifetime in the situation where I've had an actively hostile government. I've had an indifferent government. I've had people who didn't give a damn about black people, but we've never had a government in my lifetime that was actively hostile to us, that filled its ranks with racists and bigots and misogynists, and where the media acts like it's normal. This shit is not normal. I watched the vote here in Brexit in the UK, and it scared the hell out of me. And I said to all of my friends back home, what is our plan B for if Trump gets elected? And they all said, Deborah, you're crazy. Deborah, you're paranoid. Deborah, you just worry about, you think all white people are racist. That will never happen here. On election night, I'm in LA at a victory party for Prop 64, which we won, the initiative to legalize cannabis in California. Whoopee! Doesn't mean shit if you have an attorney general who thinks that marijuana is just as bad as heroin and that everybody should be punished. The guy that we just elected as our vice president picked that job because he could not be governor of Indiana anymore. He was so bad. This man passed a law requiring women to have funerals for their fetuses when they miscarried. Yeah, you heard me right. We represented a woman who was prosecuted by the state of Indiana because she attempted to kill herself by throwing herself down a flight of stairs. She was unsuccessful in killing herself, but her baby died, and so the state of Indiana prosecuted her for fetal homicide. This is the guy who's now going to be the vice president of the United States. Second in stupidity only to the guy that he's next to. Y'all are laughing, but it's not funny. It is not funny. For those of you who lived in Italy under Berlusconi, imagine him running the world. That's what we got now. And the hostility to drugs and drug policy is no joke. The first person, the first governor to endorse Donald Trump was Paul LePage, the governor of Maine, a man who was so incredibly stupid and crazy that he announced on television that he had a little book of all the drug dealers in his state named Shifty and Smoothie, etc., and they were black and Latino, and that was the reason that they have a heroin problem in Maine. And oh, by the way, those guys who are selling drugs, they also make sure that they impregnate some white girls before they go back home. I am not lying. And when he was challenged on it, he doubled down on the crazy. And when I say double down, I mean he made a phone call on tape to the reporter who reported on it, who claimed that that was racially biased language, and called him a weaseling cocksucker on tape and told him to publish it. They aired it on TV, and the man is still governor. I want you guys to hear me, because I'm not making any of this up. I'm not making any of it up. And I want to just say something else, because this is what I see coming. These folks over there and over here who have been promising disaffected, scared people that they're going to bring their jobs back, that they're going to give them back the quality and standard of living that they had before, which we all know is never coming again. They're not capable of fulfilling on those promises. But what they are capable of doing is making the lives of all of the scapegoated and marginalized people that they rode to power on so miserable that their constituents will feel better about themselves. And that ought to scare the hell out of us, because these folks have come to power scapegoating drug users, scapegoating immigrants, scapegoating LGBT people. Those are our people. If you really think that we're going to be able to continue making progress in drug policy and that Duterte is going to be an aberration, you guys need to think again, because that's not the case. And you need to read your history, because all of the conditions, economic, social, political, that brought us the conditions and the consequences of World War II are in place now. And I just want to say one last thing, which is that I was thinking about this the other night. Roosevelt and Hitler both came to power at the same time. Roosevelt was elected in the fall of '32. Hitler came to power in the spring of '33. They both died in '45. So we're talking 12 years. Think about what happened in the world in that 12-year period. Think about how many people died in that 12-year period. We're talking more than 20 million people dead. Now, I always used to believe that when push came to shove, Americans would do the right thing, that they would pick the Roosevelt over the Hitler. But I was wrong, because this go round, we picked the Hitler. So I don't know what that means for the world. Does that mean that we have to look at the Germans to provide us with the Roosevelt? I'm hoping, because right now that may be the only place to look. But I really want us to take very seriously this moment that we're in, and to understand that our task is going to be about rescuing people. It's not necessarily going to be about delivering services the way that we did before. It's going to be about rescuing people, saving them from death, saving them from a state onslaught that we know is coming. Because when these leaders get pushed up against the wall and their constituents are coming for them, they're going to come for us. That's all I have to say.